guys, thanks for tuning in. Tonight I'm going to be working on some of my bloom coasters. This particular style is called, I call it Sun Bloom, and it's like a sunset orange when it's all said and done, but I make it using pink and yellow. So I use the Liquitex acrylic ink in magenta, and then I use the Mixol yellow. And then for the white flower, I use this, it's a white pigment paste. It's from Russia. I don't know what that says, but I get this on a website. It's craftsman.store, but I'll put a link to everything in the description. And then I also use some of these little crushed glass pieces for the center. So the pink and the yellow blend together. They make this beautiful sunset orange. That's why this particular style I call Sun Bloom. I also make this in a blue-pink blend that kind of blends to like a purple shade, and then a teal and yellow that blends to a green. So that's Moon Bloom and Sea Bloom. And these are staples on my website. I always have these available. A lot of the things I make are one of a kind. I only make them once, but the blooms I make over and over again. They're just fun to make. So I've mixed up 12 ounces of resin. So each coaster gets 3 ounces. And I've already divided up the resin for my colors. So I have 2.5 ounces for the pink, 1.5 ounces for the yellow, and then a little bit, about an ounce for the white. So I have 5 ounces here. And then I leave 7 ounces for the clear. So, with the pink, I do 7 drops. And you can really do this with any transparent color. 6, 7. You could use alcohol ink, pigment paste, you could use tint. You could even use mica powder if you want it to, or acrylic paint, as long as whatever colorant you use remains translucent or semi-transparent. You still want to be able to see through it, because if you can't see through it, then you won't be able to see the flower that you're going to create. And that's kind of the whole point of the design. So any colorants will work, like I said, as long as they have some transparency left in them. And I love using acrylic ink for this. They are transparent pretty much no matter how much ink you add to the resin. They stay transparent, but you can get these beautiful, rich, deep colors that are still transparent. You can see the Eye Candy logo on the stick there. Eye Candy, I love their mica powders. They always send some sticks with the orders. But like I said, you get this beautiful, deep color, and it's still transparent. So this particular Mixol is transparent as well. I'm going to do 5 drops. Some of them are very opaque, and some of them retain some transparency. So if you use Mixol colorants, don't just assume that they're transparent or assume that they're not. Give them a little bit of a test run first, because I've been surprised. But this yellow does stay nice and transparent. And this is just a beautiful bright yellow. It's very, very sunny. I love this color. My favorite color combination is yellow and pink, which you can probably tell because of my logo is yellow and pink. And I love how they blend together to make orange. I love orange. I love all colors, really. But I just love pink and yellow together. So this was one of the first color combinations I really played with resin, and still one of my favorites. All right, so that's mixed up. And now for this white, so this is a very, very strong white. You could use Mixol white, you could use Armor Art white. As long as it's heavy, alcohol ink white, even if it's a sinking white, is not going to be heavy enough to get this effect. So you need some kind of a heavy white pigment. If you've got Mixol, that works great. Armor Art works great. I just like to use this. So I just let this kind of run off my stick until it stops dripping. And then I put it in. It doesn't take much at all. If you're gonna use a different brand of white, just make sure that you mix enough in so that it's fully opaque. So in a 1 ounce of resin, if you're using the Mixol white, you would want to use about 10 to 12 drops. That's what I tend to go with when I'm using the Mixol white. Armor Art is a lot thicker, I think. I don't think that comes out as easily in drops, but again, just put enough in so that you have a solid opaque white. Just mix it up good. And oh, got a big bubble there. You can see, nice and opaque. All right, let me grab my clear. All right, so I'm just gonna hit these with a heat gun real quick. Get rid of those air bubbles that float to the top. Okay. So I'm gonna start with the pink. Just gonna move these out of my way because I will knock them over. And I'm just gonna pour a ring around the edge of each of these. And I'm gonna try to make them as even as possible, as equal amounts in each one. Now I am using this resin right away. I didn't let it sit, if you're wondering. So I just mix up my colors and pour. However, your resin might be different. I am using the Naked Fusion Artist resin, and every resin is different. So don't get frustrated if you try this technique and it doesn't work. It doesn't mean it can't work. It just means that your resin is different, and you just have to kind of find the right timing for the resin. And also, whatever you're using for the colorants can make a difference. So if you're using alcohol ink, or if you're using a mica powder or a pigment paste, you are going to get, very likely going to get different results. So you need to just kind of play with it and figure out the right timing and the right technique for your particular resin. But if you are using everything that I'm using, the Naked Fusion resin, and the same exact colorants, you should get the same results, because I make these coasters over and over and over. It is definitely repeatable. So let's get that out of there. All right, next I go in with the yellow. I'm gonna pour this just inside of the pink. I'll overlap the pink a little bit, but you don't really have to overlap it. And again, I'm trying to pour the same amount in each coaster. Trying to get about the same look in each one. But as we all know with resin, it's not possible to duplicate anything, so. And I am trying to make these more circular than an oval shape. So on a couple of these where I see it's more of an oval or an egg, I'm just gonna go in and close it up a little bit. But you don't have to be exact, because this next step where we pour the clear, it's all gonna blend. All right, I got my clear. And I like to just pop those surface bubbles before I pour. Just one less thing to worry about. Now I'm gonna pour, and I want to try and push the yellow about halfway between the edge of the yellow and the edge of the coaster. So kind of right in the middle of the pink is where I'm trying to push that yellow to. It's going to eventually flow all the way to the edges on its own. Okay, now I've got some clear left in the cup, and I'm just gonna give these a second to settle, because I want them to be filled the same amount. So I'm gonna add the rest of this clear into the ones that are lower. So this one right now has the most, and these don't have quite as much. So I'm gonna just add a bit more to each of these. Again, I'm trying to get them all filled to about the same height. You can already see that orange ring developing. That's gonna blend so pretty. All right, now I'm gonna take the fat end of this toothpick, and I'm just gonna go around the inside edge of this mold just to pop any bubbles that might be stuck to the mold. I have found when you pour resin around the edge, like I did with the purple or the pink, you tend to get a lot of bubbles on the edge. But when you pour in the center is your first pour and let it kind of spread out, you get less edge bubbles. But this type of a pour will give you the most bubbles on that edge. So when I do my dragon skin coasters, I don't need to do this step. I skip this step because of the way it's poured. You don't get the edge bubbles. When you do this, you want to be careful. You don't want to push too hard and scratch your mold. But you do want to get into that corner, right where the bottom of the mold meets the side of the mold. That's where the bubbles like to hide. All right, now I'm gonna go take that same tip, and there's some bigger bubbles that are just sitting on the bottom, right on the bottom of the coaster. Now I'm not touching the coaster itself, or the mold I should say. I'm actually using kind of this little, almost like a circular motion right above the bubble, and that creates kind of like a little vortex that almost just sucks the bubble up to the top. And it doesn't disturb the color very much because I'm doing it just in one tiny little spot. So I'm just lifting these bigger bubbles to the surface. Look how much that color's changing just sitting here. The pink is going to move to the center. So this yellow ring will eventually blend out as well. But it'll definitely be more vibrant on the edges. I just love this technique. Okay, one more time with the heat gun. And when you use the heat gun, you want to be careful not to get it so hot that you move the resin around. You just want to pop the bubbles. Okay, the next step is to put the glass in. So I just use a little spoon. And just put one little spoonful in the center. And just pushing the glass down. It is heavy, so it sinks, but I want to kind of move it around a little bit, make sure that it's a nice circle or a nice round shape. So I'm just kind of spreading it out a little bit. And when you do this, you'll also see some air bubbles will come up. So that's good too. This helps release those air bubbles. I'm just gonna hit it with the torch real quick as I get those last bubbles out. Now it's time for the white. So I'm just gonna pour this straight from the cup, but if you are new to resin or you don't have a ton of control with pouring, you can put your resin into a little sandwich bag and push it all into the corner and snip off the corner and use it like a piping bag. And that'll give you more control over how you're making your flowers. But I make these quite a bit, so I've gotten pretty comfortable with a cup. So I'm just gonna pour from here. Now I'm not gonna make these really thin. I want this to be kind of a thick stream. And if you're gonna pour from a cup, pinch and make a little nice little spout for yourself. And it doesn't have to be perfect petals. You notice these are kind of wavy. That's totally fine because this is gonna spread so much that all those little wavy lines, it's actually gonna create a pretty cool effect where I've got kind of these wavy edges. So I really don't go for perfection on these. I don't even count the number of petals I'm making. I'm just doing an outer ring of petals and then an inner shorter ring. And the outer ring, I do try to go as far as I can without touching the mold. Every once in a while I do touch the mold with the white, which will create kind of an interesting effect as it spreads because it sticks to the mold then. So try not to get it on the mold, but if you do, not the end of the world. All right, now I've still got some white left. And these are still not full. What I've learned with these coasters is 3 ounces will dome these. So I'm looking at them. This one is pretty much full and domed. These two could use a little bit more. So I'm just gonna put some white in the center just to fill it a little bit more. And then that'll create a really neat effect. As the white sinks down, it's gonna encounter that glass and it's gonna spread out around the glass and it looks so cool. So I'm just hitting these with some more white just to fill them up. Then I'll put a little bit in this one just because I don't want it to not have that effect, but not as much. And then I'm gonna look at them again. This guy could use a little bit more, so I'm at the bottom of my white here. Okay, that's about it. So I'm gonna let these cure overnight. I'll probably come back in about 15 minutes and torch them again. Just because there will be some bubbles that are gonna rise up through, especially in the middle where the glass is. So these will sit, like I said, about 10-15 more minutes. I'll torch them one more time and then I'll cover them up for the night and I will be back tomorrow to demold. So I'll see you then. Good morning. It has been 24 hours and they are nice and cured. So let's demold. This is always my favorite part, just like Christmas. So you can see they're still transparent. The backs of these are really pretty, but the front, even prettier. Just love the dimension. And you can see how the pink on the edge fades into that brilliant orange and then yellow in the center. This one has a nice ring of white around the center. That's kind of cool. So these are all gonna need just minimal filing around the edges because they were filled to the top, so they don't really have a lip. I just love this. This is my favorite effect. So as always, if you found this video helpful, please subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. And if you like this design and want to purchase it, it is available on my website, tiftonstudio.com. So thanks for tuning in, and I will see you next time.